back. We have made it to March. For those of you that have been a part of Next Step Leadership now for the second leadership cast and leader cast, we've got a lot of fun today. I'm going to start off with the power of social media. Leslie and I went to middle school together. And without dating myself or her, I will say we haven't physically been in the same space in 2 decades and a little bit. All right, with plusages, all right? So we have lived with each other from afar and watched each other's careers, have slowly started to rekindle our friendship. And over the years, and what she doesn't know, and is kind of a surprise, is as I am in the proof stage of Lessons in Leadership Volume 1 through Next Step Leadership, Leslie has given me the opportunity in the past, in collaborating with me, to be Lesson 50, the self-care inventory. And I don't think there's anything better than having a licensed mental health counselor be a part of that and give us that type of expertise. So when you get the book, she is highlighted in there with some of those cool pieces. The power of social media. The first LeaderCast or leadership interview with Mr. Holda hit 150 views within 3 days because of all of you. I can't thank you enough for your time. All the people that had feedback, all the different things that have come my way. I did a quick follow-up. We're going to have a Next Step Leadership banner coming with the microphone. Check this out, right? We had a piece of paper last time on a whiteboard. We've already got some comeuppance thanks to the Museum of Intrigue. So this is absolutely amazing to be here. And for those of you who follow the Next Step Leadership Instagram, we have the reel out with the walkthrough of Destiny Mall and the Museum of Intrigue. So it's pretty cool. Leslie brings a lot of expertise today, and I'm really excited to get things going with her today. She asked me a very interesting question. And a lot of you has asked me the same question. You said, well, what exactly, we come to your webpage, we've seen what next-stepleadership.com is. It looks like you're just a consultant, Angelo. Tell us more. And the conversation has come down to the point of understanding that it's time to give it all away. And what I mean by that is how many of you were really good workers and have ended up in situations where you were promoted. Now you're the boss, you're the manager. You're being asked to lead people that you were having a beverage with on Friday nights. You went to a baby shower, you were at a birthday party. You've seen them at their lowest point, you've seen them at their highest point. And now you're being asked to lead goals and get paid different money and do different things. And nobody really has put you in a position to know or understand or be trained to do that new job or be that new manager or lead people. Show of hands out there, right? How many of you are leading right now and you didn't even ask to be a leader? You didn't even ask to be a manager. The identity of Next Step Leadership is to connect those connections and get lenses from people like Leslie and Brad, who was here last month, and build on those connections and also have a connection for you, someone you can reach out to and ask good questions to. Because I'm no expert, but it's something that I'm passionate about providing and putting out there for everybody. Whew. Leslie is a self-employed business owner, and I am going to stop talking now and give the floor to Leslie and ask the first question. Who is Leslie Shaffer? Hereba.
Big question. Well, when you ask me this question, it's something I do think about when it comes around my birthday, which is in a few weeks, which is, it's kind of like your own personal new year. What have I learned? Who am I? What have I put into this world? And I sort of have come down to that I'm kind of this two flips of the coin, yin and yang, hot and cold. I have a very curious, playful, warm, engaging side, and then I find this other side of me that can be very serious and persistent and bossy at times and determined. And I feel like that kind of yin and yang is kind of always at play, and I feel like it's really helped me pursue my professional roles in terms of being a therapist that really requires that softer side, but also running a business that requires, I guess, the side that needs to be a little bit more regimented, if you will.
Tell us about your business. Shameless plug on my end. Please just tell everyone what is your business and what is it that you are doing?
So it's Hereba Mental Health Counseling. It's a private practice, group private practice. So it's myself, 5 other clinicians, and an admin staff. And we provide services to the community, pretty much lower teens all the way up through adults. And we all have our own specialties and we all have our own focuses in terms of treatment. And we just took on an intern, so that's what we're doing.
So you're also providing opportunities for interns and moving through, just keeping that bridge open that way.
Yeah, that's a new chapter that we're on right now, is bringing in interns and extending what was extended to myself in graduate school, where you have to put in a lot of hours and be a part of a group and learn the craft.
Leslie, what are your current goals?
Well, professionally speaking, as a group practice, I would like to expand. I would like to add more clinicians. It's been a bit of a challenge with a shortage of mental health counselors, and there's also a lot of rules in the state of New York in terms of licensing. So there's been some barriers, which has led me to decide to try to open up my practice to interns, and also leads me here. So after you kind of, what is the saying, beat a dead horse after a while, you're like, okay, how do I grow? How do I expand? How do we impact people? There's a mental health crisis. I've never had such a longer wait list ever. And that has led to this seed of, maybe we can start offering groups. Maybe we could do workshops. Maybe I could start a podcast, which is kind of how we connected.
Well, we'll figure it out together, we promise. Now, with that in mind, what do you feel contributes to the waiting list and this influx? Do you think it's the past 2 years? I think the 15th was the 2-year anniversary of flatten the curve for COVID and people being at home. Do you think that has played into your situation?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, COVID has. I remember being in grad school and one day sitting and watching a PowerPoint slide that said the need for mental health versus licensed clinicians, and it was some ridiculous, and I remember thinking, I am never going to have a shortage of work, but I don't think that I really understood the shortage, and certainly this has created a crisis for so many people being isolated and not having connections and just dealing with a lot of things I don't think any of us really expected to.
Sure. You actually bring up what I do is when I find out who's going to be a guest, and this is for the viewers, when I find out who's going to be a guest, I will ask them specifically on title of the guest, not the name, nobody knows who you are yet, none of that, but I did get 2 specifically from questions from followers. They had, and the tie-in is perfect because we just talked about your list that's grown and what's happened. So the next one up is actually from a follower, and the question is, how are you able to lead while also taking care of your own mental well-being? And considering that we just talked about you transferring so much conversation and work with your clients, how do you go about having your own mental well-being in place?
Well, I think, one of the interesting things about mental health counseling or any licensed mental health professional is that it's built into our profession that we have to have supervision. And supervision is for our own well-being and for our clients' well-being. And within that, we talk about, obviously there's admin and, things that are hard, but we talk about what are our triggers? What are things within the work we're doing with clients that are hard for us? Where is there countertransference? Are we taking something on? So there's this level of acknowledgement that you have your own mental health and you have to keep it well to be able to do a good job. And so the way that we do that is that I supervise my client or my staff therapist, but I also seek out my own supervision. So I have a woman in the community that I see on a bi-weekly basis to be like, what the heck's going on? And
Here's
somebody,
what I got.
yeah,
Okay.
right. Because as a parent during COVID, it's been crazy. And then also running a business, and also for the first time as therapists, we are in the same crisis with our clients. So to pretend that that's not there or that's not happening isn't authentic.
Yeah.
And so that's something that we've all had to kind of learn to navigate as a profession.
I'm also for my other hat, my working hat, my professional position in higher education. I'm also the chair of the wellness committee, and one of the things that came up for us was doing a real session and workshop on the sandwich generation, which is individuals in the middle of raising their children as well as raising or taking care of their elderly parents. So the sandwich generation. So it seems to encompass this. You're not alone. I'm not alone.
Yeah.
But there's ways that we can move through that.
Yeah, and even professionally, I give supervision to my staff. There's also, this line where it's like, okay, you're being triggered a lot about this. This is not comfortable for us because I'm your boss, right? So this is where you would advise your staff person to go and make sure that they're being supported in their own mental health. And it's my job as the director, of the clinic to know when, okay, this is affecting me. I have to make sure that I seek outside support as well.
So Leslie, what is a mistake you have made while leading or managing that you wish you could take back? Or what did you learn from it?
I think the biggest mistakes that I've made have come when I've made choices or decisions from the scarcity mindset. And just believing that there was a lack of something, that I wasn't having enough clients, that insurance wasn't going to work. And
It's stressful.
Yeah, it's really stressful. And I feel like that what I've learned from it is that all these great gurus talk about mindset and abundance and manifestation. And really, there's a lot of power in that. When you believe you can, when you believe it's going to work out, when you believe if you're just patient. So I think a lot of
speaking it into existence is
right. I think a lot of my mistakes come from believing the things that I can. I don't know if I want to illuminate them all right now, as much as I can kind of say that they all come from that place.
Do you think it is your responsibility to know if any of your employees have mental health issues? And is it important to know the stressors and signs that come with that type of responsibility?
Yeah, definitely. It's part of our professional work is to be aware of what our stressors and triggers are. And in the context of supervision within the therapeutic world, you are sharing with your supervisor when clients are triggering you or when things are upsetting you. I don't think necessarily, there's an absolute line, like you're not necessarily sharing diagnoses with your supervisor, but being aware that somebody struggles with anxiety or depression or is triggered by things in their past. It could be absentee parents, illnesses, grief, death. This is a conversation we have in the type of work that I do, but it's also important for us to know when it's appropriate to refer them out. I think that you could use some support on this. Have you thought about talking to your own therapist? Which is just kind of an everyday conversation in the world of therapy. It's I think that conversation is obviously very different in a different field.
Is it so if I'm a therapist and you are supervising me, who do you talk to? Like, how does that work for them in that conversation?
Who do I talk to? I mean, as a group practice owner, I technically don't have to talk to anybody, but if I want to be a good clinician and a good manager, then I have just sought out my own supervision, personally within the community with another therapist, and I'm able to sift through with her when, I might have cases that are difficult for me, or I might have my own stuff come up, or maybe I'm having a hard time. I mean, it's been COVID. How do I make sure to take care of myself and my stuff so that I can be present for my clients and for my staff?
So we talked about your team and how you work through seeing some of those things, but now the other side of that, the people that you serve and work with, what has been your greatest accomplishment so far with the client?
I think it's hard to say that there's one greatest accomplishment. When you're doing therapy, you start to really feel that there's all of these small victories. They're like this little, snowball that just grows and grows. A client that comes in who isn't willing to do anything, and all of a sudden they start telling you, well, I tried this, or, they're not taking care of themselves, and they come in, you notice they have clean clothes on, or, suddenly they're laughing or they're smiling.
I'm wearing a belt with pants instead of sweats today.
Yeah, not yoga pants or whatever. That they've casually will talk about that they met out with a friend for lunch, which is something that they never would do because they were isolating. So it's really like in the listening that I see and hear these victories, and I really do try really hard to illuminate that to them, reflect it back like, wow, like this is exciting, look at these changes. But I mean, in terms of the bigger victories, it would be clients that came in really dark, heavy spaces, not wanting to live, and being able to see them through their tragedies and through their mental health, and see them building skills and support systems and then thriving. I mean, we all as clinicians have some of those, and those are like, I guess you could say some of your bigger accomplishments.
The bigger accomplishments come with the smallest steps.
Yes. Small steps matter.
Okay, I'm going to switch the narrative. 2 years ago, we had riots in the streets. We had George Floyd. We have, in my profession, a sweeping look in higher education for the need for chief officers, coordinators, individuals with diversity, equity, and inclusion as their megaphone. They're coming to every conversation thinking about those three phases of conversation, about individuals, what it means, and they're branching through. So diversity and other pieces will always be a part of Next Step because it's what I'm passionate about on the other part of being different and asking those types of pieces. What efforts have you made or been involved with that move diversity forward and work on those diversity, equity, and inclusion competence initiatives?
Well, I think there are a few things. Again, professionally, we have continuing education, of which we have to do every 3 years continuously. So there's a lot of education out there, revolving around diversity, LGBTQ community, anything you can think of. But in terms of our work, because our work is being with people and recognizing through supervision where our blind spots might be, and because we have real conversations about it, I really think having transparency and education within my practice is really important for somebody to be able to say, I don't understand this person's experience, or I need help understanding this person's experience. When we are doing work we're doing, we don't have to understand it to be with them.
Sure.
And so I think that kind of, in that way, not that therapists can't bring their own stuff into a room, but to be aware of the fact that you can be with somebody and not experience what
The other piece of that is something like implicit bias, having no clue that this is in your window and having those conversations, or your upbringing group.
Right, and so that's our supervision, and then we even do group supervision clinically. Like the clinicians, we all get together to say, this is how I navigated this. What piece am I missing? How did I not, how do I not understand this experience? Or this is an experience I understand because, So.
All right. This is usually the homework portion of questions. What I mean by that is I have what I jokingly call a graveyard of unfinished books, articles, pieces that I'm like, oh, man, I got to get back to those. How many of you out there are doing the same thing? What is currently on the Kindle or nightstand of Leslie?
A lot of things.
A lot. So now one book at a time?
No.
See, that might be my issue. I just want one at a time.
No, not at all. My staff jokes with me that I have secretive ADHD. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that I'm always doing a lot of things at once. And so my reading list is no different. So I have a few different books next to my bed. I have 2 different podcasts. I have books on Audible. If I were to kind of list them, they all are related to my field, but that's what I love about my field is that it never ends. Like you can always learn. So I have The Body Keeps Score, which is kind of like just a very powerful book about trauma and how trauma works in the body. It's kind of like, I don't know, a holy grail in my field, if you will, when it comes to PTSD. Burnout, which is by the Nagowski sisters, and they really have done a lot. It seems I'm really interested in books that have research. Like it's not just like fluffy, you should love everybody.
It's data driven.
It's all of these things now that I'm looking at it is they're data driven, and I think that that's important. And so they researched how we don't process burnout and stress, and we get stuck in cycles, and so that's really helpful for people. Atlas of the Heart is Brene Brown's new book, and really it's kind of like a dictionary of language. It's about, she's an emotional researcher, and she really finds the definition between or behind feelings. And if we pick the language of our feelings, we can express ourselves accurately. And so it's a really powerful book. And then I have one about grief for personal reasons, and it's just how do you navigate grief, and just grief is such a taboo topic. Death is a taboo topic, and yet we all die. So, there's irony.
And then the other part is you lose somebody personally. If you lose somebody after your bereavement time, your 3 days are up, you're supposed to be fine. I mean, I know people that I have worked with in the past. They've had pets that pass that they're still not okay today. So grief book. Don't worry. Also, we will post these in the comment section, so we'll make your homework a little easier for you.
And really, in this book, it's by David Kessler and Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. They are kind of the pioneers in the death and dying field, again, which is really not well known to most people. And even in our culture, we don't have a lot of language or rituals surrounding death either. And so things end all the time, not just death, right? Things end all the time. So that's interesting. And then a podcast that I really love, I'm a total fangirl, is We Can Do Hard Things by Glennon Doyle. She also has really wonderful books like Untamed, but she and her sister and her wife, like they put together just some really thoughtful, well done podcasts. So
you guys have
all
homework.
going on at once.
You have homework. And it's eclectic, but at the same time, it feeds your own lifelong learning. But
it informs me. It informs my work. I find it interesting. I really enjoy the data behind it because it makes sense. Like human behavior comes from someplace,
Sure. All right. This is usually the sidewinder. So this is one of those questions that has really caused people to take a step back, and it's become challenging. So I'm going to ask Leslie, what would you say is the biggest misconception that other people have about you, and how do you work through that?
I thought about this for a while, and I could be wrong. I might need to go out into the public and find out more information, but I think that I really try to present myself authentically in who I am. And so I don't know what the the misperceptions might be. However, I can say I've had clients and sometimes people in the business world be surprised by my more playful side, or they'll notice my tattoos and be like, I can't believe somebody like you would have a tattoo. And so it's that kind of dichotomy that we started with, that there's both sides to me, but really there's both sides to everybody.
Sure.
Right? So I would say that's probably the biggest misconception.
Completely understand. I personally have a whole bunch of different pieces of me. Each, we all have our story and our identities. But it's always interesting when you hear it from someone else and they're like, oh, why do you like Boys to Men? Or whatever that might be.
I had a few clients say to me, like, I can't believe you have a tattoo. And I really I went home, I was like, why did they think that? Why wouldn't I have a tattoo? Like, I really kind of sat with that, and I wasn't really sure, but that was the one that really stuck out.
So then we also look at misconceptions that way. So thank you for sharing that. I mean, a lot like we were talking about before, it leads into different dialogue. So going with that, a lot of the buzzwords that we hear, and a lot of you may be dealing with, are fail forward, or putting yourself in positions where you don't know the answer, right? Leslie, tell me about a time that you failed as a leader.
I think the failures that I've had as a leader have come from decisions I've made with what I was saying, which is this having a scarcity mindset, that there isn't enough, that maybe I'm not enough, that there's this fear base behind that. And that could be between hiring, it could be about making particular choices or creating different programs. I feel like when you're not doing it from like a settled, authentic place, then there's just so much room for error.
That leads probably for me, what I would say when I make the worst leadership choices or management decisions is when it has to be expedited. I have to do it in a quick way, and I don't gather or cultivate enough perspective or answers from people. So mine, on the other side of that would be, yours would be scarcity, mine would be time.
Yeah.
Being quick on decisions and quick on moving through information.
Yeah, and I completely would second that. And that's where the thing of having boundaries is that you can still be a leader and say, I don't know right now, or I need to take a minute, or I will answer this for you tomorrow, or I need more information. I think that people actually admire that, right? Because you're not walking around like you're the expert in everything.
Message. If you need to take one away, it is the leadership question of this moment. It's okay to say, I don't know, let me get back to you. It's okay to take that time out and find a way to serve and work through that information for the people that are coming to you for answers. They'll probably respect you more if you say, I don't know, let me go find out.
Well, you also then are being thoughtful. You're looked at as a leader who is thoughtful. And I think that even if somebody disagrees with you, if they feel like you have thought about it, it's a lot harder to have that, contention or whatever it might be.
Thank you. We have one last question, and it's really not that way. It's more of an opportunity to highlight you as we close off. For me, it's just an opportunity to give you guys Leslie's perspective. What ideas do you want to leave the Next Step Leadership viewers with today about leadership and about your work and movements as you move forward?
I think one of the first things is that practice what you preach. I think that you need to lead by example. I think that when you are taking care of yourself or you are taking space to make decisions, then you are, leading by an example that really allows some respect in who you are. The other is you can't pour from an empty cup. I mean, in the field of mental health, you really can't show up to your clients if you're completely burned out.
Look, I got nothing.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Where's the coffee?
Yeah. And so really allowing yourself the time to restore and take space. And I really do try to honor when my clinicians or people that are working with me say like, I am burned out, like I need to reduce my load for a little bit, or I need to take a day off. Like if somebody is coming to you with that, then taking them seriously is important. Always be a student. I think that that's where you and I really connect, is always learning from everybody. The people that you meet, your clients, your staff, your students, like everybody has something interesting and important to say. And not being the expert is, I think something, how are we experts? There's like never ending learning, right?
Yeah. When we opened with that, I don't know everything. I'm just passionate about leadership and giving that to people.
Right, and I think the people that I admire that are leaders are always learning too, And then, I think being playful really kind of creates the narrative around people just being who they are. And when people can be who they are, I think they do their best work. And then as the leader, you set the permissions, right? If you're playful and you laugh or you're authentic that you don't feel well, you set the permission for everybody that's working with you to be able to be the same, right? You can have these dialogues and conversations. I'm having a hard time with this. I'm stuck at this point, or whatever the situation might be.
Awesome. That was the last question we had. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for your time and putting this time together. It's not often I can be in Syracuse to do this, and we originally it was going to be, we're going to use social media, we're going to use technology, but we have the opportunity to do it together today. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Watch out, I'm going to personally challenge her to open her own podcast in the future. And again, we want to thank Sir Questions a lot back there. The Museum of Intrigue, who has been so good to us to let us use this space. Their coordinator, Jamie Owens, who's behind the scenes, who's been amazing in helping us today. And I mean, last time we came at you with a printer, a piece of paper, we're getting there. And this is exciting. If you want to chat or contact me, you can definitely do that through next-stepleadership.com. And in the comment section of the YouTube channel, we will have a briefer but version of the answers from Leslie today, and potentially her contact information as well. If there's questions that you have or you have follow-up ideas, we're always looking to get better, and thanks for watching.
Thank you.